Really love about board games is that they are a mode of expression. They are able to express stories, cultures, and ideas through different ways. And when done so authentically through its theme and mechanisms, those games have a long-lasting place on my shelf. And sometimes I'm more interested in a game's story than how it plays out or whether it's the perfect game. And so when I heard that Lemery Games was coming out with LUDOS, the Ancient Games of Africa, definitely had to explore it. And so in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to play all 4 games. And without further ado, let's get this video started. Hi, my name's Danny. I'm an avid modern board gamer from Australia who loves sharing my passion for this hobby with you, my friends, and my family. Come and join me on this journey. And don't forget to subscribe. Hey, Danny, do you like 2-player board games? 2-player board games are my favorite. LUDOS, the Ancient Games of Africa, is 4 2-player games that fit literally right inside your pocket. Maybe once you take it out of this big board game box, of course. Dara is a traditional West African 2-player abstract game originating from Nigeria. In this game, players are taking on the role of tribe leaders as they summon their chosen animals to try and gain blessings for their family and their people. In this game, players are going to choose to either control the lions or the elephants. I think I might choose to use the lions today. And look how cool these wooden pieces are. The game occurs across 2 main phases. You've got the summoning phase and the movement phase. In the summoning phase, players are going to take it in alternating turn order to place a piece anywhere on the grid, just like this. Once all the player pieces are out on the grid, the movement phase then begins. In the movement phase, players can choose any of their pieces to move into a free open space by moving along these lines. If you manage to actively move into a space that creates a line of 3 of your own animal tokens, you get to remove an opponent's piece from anywhere on the board, unless your opponent's pieces are in a group of 3. Any opponent's piece that is in a line of 3 is untouchable, so you're gonna have to prey on the weaker animals before trying to break up that bigger herd. Players continue taking turns moving their pieces this way to try and make lines of 3 in order to remove the opponent's pieces. If a player ever removes up to 10 opponent pieces, they automatically win the game. If you manage to back your opponent into a corner and they can't make any possible moves, you also win the game. Think of it as exerting your dominance. Dara is a really tactful game about planning a couple of moves ahead. In that summoning phase, when you're placing your animals out, you kind of want to put them into a position where on the following phase, in the movement phase, you can move those animals and maneuver them so they create multiple lines of 3. The more ways you can create multiple lines of 3, the higher the chance you'll be able to remove an opponent's animal piece. And by weakening your animal's herd, you can actually then hopefully swing the game in your favor. I also like the fact that if your opponent has a line of 3 animals, you can't actually break that up. It has a really nice, great thematic tie. This idea that animals protect each other, tribes look out for each other, and that if we stick together, you'll be stronger. And the fact that you can just kind of ping off the single pieces that are only in pairs means that it kind of really taps into that idea of predator versus prey, which I really enjoy in this game. Have you ever seen a camel in real life? Maybe you've ridden a camel along a beach. Did you know that here in Australia, there are over 1 million camels just wandering around in the outback? When I saw the game Yote and I saw these beautiful wooden camel pieces, it immediately reminded me of seeing and riding those camels in the outback. And so this is a game where you could almost picture 2 merchant sellers in a West African bazaar kind of wagering out a deal and playing this game as a way to resolve that deal. This is a game which has some surprising elements infused. It's very strategic, very tactful in nature. Each player will control a caravan of different camels. One player plays as the light camels and the other player plays as the dark camels. The player who plays the light camels will go first. On your turn, you've got one of 3 actions. You can either place a camel from your supply anywhere onto a free space on the board. You can move a camel orthogonally, so either vertically or horizontally, into a free space, or you can jump over an opponent's camel and thus capturing that camel. You then, if you capture an opponent's camel, can take any of your opponent's other camels from anywhere on the board and also add it to your supply, thereby weakening the amount of choices they have on their next turn. This game is really strategic. First of all, you really don't want to deploy all of your camels straight away in this game, because the more camels you have out in the game map, the more opportunities there are for your opponent to try and nab them and take them from you. So you don't want to really feed your other opponent by giving them things that they can literally take from you. You also kind of want to stick to the middle of the board. Sticking to the central part will give you more pathways and more options to maneuver your camels so that you have a few camels you can jump over. You might even be able to lure an opponent's camel to try and take one of yours so that you can then subsequently take an opponent's camel, thereby creating like a camel trap. At the end of the game, whenever a player can't deploy a camel or all of their camels are taken, that player loses and the other player wins. The game also comes with an advanced mode where you can kind of chain capture. Think of it as multiple leapfrogging, because if you can leapfrog over multiple pieces that your opponent has, you can capture them all in a successive chaining combo, I guess. You can also, in the advanced mode, jump over your own piece to try and maneuver your camel pieces into a much more tactically advantaged position. I'm a massive fan of chocolate. I mean, who can't resist that sweet, velvety taste? And I like enjoying having a block of chocolate after dinner, especially after a long day at work. And it got me thinking about Coca Beans and how appreciative I am of where all of these ingredients come from. Oware is a 2-player game about harvesting coca beans. Players are going to take on the role of coca bean farmers as they compete to try and sow the coca beans in and also pick them at the same time. The aim of the game Oware is to be able to sow and harvest 25 coca beans from your opponent's land. At the beginning of the game, you're going to place this beautiful game board fabric out in between you and the other player. You're going to place 4 coca beans in each of the pods, and then you're ready to start. Important thing to note is that these 6 yellow plots belong to my farm, and these 6 lighter green plots belong to my opponent's farm. Players are going to be playing this game in alternating turn order. On your turn, you're basically going to choose one of your 6 plots. You're going to pick up all of the coca beans from that plot, and then going in an anti-clockwise order, you're going to drop a bean off as you go, just like so, filling up the other plots as you go round. Your opponent then is going to take one of their plots, pick up all the seeds from their plot, and then go anti-clockwise, placing a coca bean in each plot as they go round until they empty their hand of coca beans as well. And this is where the game gets really nuanced. So ultimately in the game, what you want to try and do is harvest the coca beans from your opponent's plot. You're only allowed to harvest their beans if their plot has 2 or 3 coca beans in it. And that's only if you end your last piece on that plot. So for example, if I take from this plot here and drop my coca beans 5 steps, my last bean is placed in my opponent's plot, which now makes this plot 2 coca beans. I can harvest all of those coca beans and place them in my reserve. If I end up with 25 coca beans or more, I would automatically win the game. Now, as players take their turns picking up coca seeds from their plots and then dropping them off and trying to drop them off in their opponent's plot, there's a shift and flow of where these coca beans are going to go. There are some situations that occur that, especially towards the second half of the game, where you pick up your coca beans and you place them into the plots, creating a group of 2 or 3 in the final plot, which you can take, but then also the plot before it might also have 2 or 3 coca beans, meaning that you can actually take that and harvest that as well, creating a double or sometimes a triple plot coca bean harvesting combo. And essentially, Oware is a game about distributing those coca beans, shifting the population of the plots, and really seeing it grow, ebb and flow, and rise and fall. And there are some situations where you'll end up with a plot with like 12 Coca Beans. And because there's only 12 plots, if you distribute 12 Coca Beans, it would essentially mean that you have to go back to that previous one where you started. And so in that situation, you skip over the one you started and put it in the next one in front of you. And so this game is all about redistributing the beans in a way so that you can swing the game to your advantage. If you can line up a combo which has 2 or 3 plots with very minimal amounts of Coca Beans, it might allow you to create a sweep harvest where you can harvest multiple plots and put them all into your supply as points. You do have a more advanced version of the game that has a much wider grid and much wider array of plots, which really deepens the amount of strategy you can then employ, especially after you've played the base game. Have you ever wanted to wander through the lush rainforest of Madagascar, exploring the wildlife, looking at the unique plant life? Well, the game Ferona, which is a very popular game that originated from Madagascar, it allows you to dabble a little bit in that world. Players are going to be controlling a legion of lemurs as they swing from the canopy, climb up vines, you exert your territory on this very competitive game map. At the start of the game, one player takes on the role of the yellow lemurs and the other player takes on the role of the green lemurs, and they lay out the board as shown. Notice that in the middle line, the lemurs alternate and there is an empty space in the very center. On your turn, you're going to be moving one of your lemurs along one of these white lines into an empty white space, either vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. If on your turn you can move that lemur along the line and it connects with pieces of lemurs of your opponent's color, you can collect all of your opponent's pieces on that line and put them into your point scoring pile. If on your turn you move your piece along a white line away from a line of your opponent's pieces, that counts as a lure move and can take all of your opponent pieces that your piece moved away from and put them in your point scoring pile. I guess thematically, moving towards a line of your opponent's pieces means like you're attacking the other group of lemurs, and then moving away means that you're luring your opponent's lemurs into a trap. Now, whether you're approaching or luring your lemurs away from your opponent's lemurs, if you initiate a lure or approach move and it creates another situation where you can continue luring or approaching, you can continue doing and repeating the capturing moves. This essentially allows you to create a combo of moves that allows you to put a really big dent in the population of your opponent's lemurs. At the end of the game, the first player to capture all of the opponent's player's lemurs or force the other player into a situation where they can make no legal moves, then that player wins the game. Now, Ferona is one of those abstract games where the board is already filled up with pieces. And what's interesting about abstract games where all the pieces have predetermined or predefined positions is that the way you kind of test out how those combos and positions can maneuver, much like in chess and checkers, where every single game those pieces are going to be in the same space, exploring how you make different moves each time you play is part of what brings you back to it. In the first game, I might go aggressively and try and attack as much as possible. And maybe another game I might play defensively and lure as much as possible. I really enjoy this idea that you fill up this space, and as the population dwindles, some of your moves become more and more challenging. And just like in chess, when more of the powerful pieces are captured, if you have less powerful pieces, it means that the strategy you're going to employ has to be far more tactical, far more well thought out, and far more planned. And I feel like this game does capture that essence of, wow, I have so many different captures at the beginning, but then as the game kind of dwindles out and there's more gaps that open up and holes that open up, I have to be a bit more tactical about how I position all of my lemurs. The game also comes with 2 other boards on the back for a much shorter and quicker gameplay experience as well. So what did you think of the 4 ancient games of Africa? Have you played any similar games? Have you heard some of these games or seen them in your travels? Now, if you're really interested in this game, they actually released the first volume of LUDOS games last year called the Ancient Games of Asia, which is available now. So if you really want to just try some of the games, you can also find a lot of these games online in a digital format. But the fact that these games come in such a bite-sized form and the components are so beautifully presented, it just makes it such an easy game to store and keep with you. Now, in terms of storage, you might have noticed there's this elevator bit here and a recess bit on the back of the board. That's so that you can store and lock the different volumes of LUDOS games together in a pile. Now, if you really found this video super helpful, please consider liking, subscribing to my channel, and supporting me on Patreon. I'll leave the Patreon link in the description box below. Otherwise, this is Danny signing out, and I hope to see you again in the near future for another Board Game Sanctuary video. See you soon.